Hello and welcome to That's So Craven, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. And we're here to talk about a rather magnificent win on Saturday against Forest, a win that many people probably weren't brave enough to predict. I'm pleased to say that some of us did. And yeah, what a lovely afternoon. Fulham at its absolute best. We are here today with a couple of That's So Craven finest. Firstly, how are you, Sam?
I'm good. You kind of perforated my eardrum with your intro, but that aside, I'm very, very happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, you gave me a jolt of energy right then, as if I needed any more. Don't let the robe fool you. I am coming in with high energy because I'm here with my daddy, and I'm here with the other daddy. I got Mark on my side. Hey, Mark.
Hey Sam, that's the first time I've been called daddy by a man, or any. Well, that got PG. But anyway, interesting moment. I'll take the compliment. We'll move on. Yeah, I hope to be as high energy as Sam. I'm also off the back of a fairly lengthy flight from Asia. But anytime Fulham wins, I feel I'm more than happy to get involved, dissect it, talk about it, bask in the glory. And I have a feeling that's what we're going to do today. So let's kick it off.
Well, you were my first name on the team sheet today, Mark, because I know you've got some festering little feelings about where Forest are and what they've done this season. I guess viz Fulham and what we've done or achieved. So you were an absolute must pick for today. But before we go on, I'm not going to do what I normally do, and that is forget to advertise and slam what we offer. Did I ever tell you about the Discord? Because last time I forgot.
Tell us more, Elton.
Thank you, Mark. We have a Discord, and it's a wonderful forum where you can talk about all things Fulham and join a few hundred members, and it's a great place to chat. Get some excellent feed, wonderful banter with some of the very, very best Fulham content creators and a few hundred other likable folk that all get on very, very well. Please come and find us. Please join the party at the That's So Craven Discord. Yeah. And that's the end of the marketing. Let's talk about Saturday. Well, what a really lovely afternoon it was indeed, or evening for some of us. And what's interesting is actually none of us who are on this podcast today were actually there in the ground, but that doesn't matter. Sam was in Melbourne, Mark was in Hong Kong,
I believe.
Never
stopped us before. And we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, that's okay. But, I thought that Fulham probably performed as best as we have all season. I thought it was a really, really great performance. And, without going into detail, I just want to get you guys, your impressions on how you think we started for those first 5 or 10 minutes.
All right, I'll kick off. I mean, I think this is the match where we saw the full potential of Adama, and I loved it because, man, he tore Nico Williams a new one. Especially in the beginning. I felt, we had Nico Williams before, and he is great when he marauds up, right? He's got a good cross on him. He's fast, and we had him for a season. But, man, Adama was running rings around him, and I love to see it. And I thought we were so attacking. And to be honest, I was one of those that wasn't confident going in. I think in our group chat, some people were more positive. I was more negative just because I thought the way we plays right into Nuno's handbook. He likes to sit back and absorb the pressure and then be ruthless on the counter. And they've done that to great effect, right? That's been part of Forest's strategy. And as much as I hate to admit it, it's been very effective. They're third for a reason. We can argue how much of that is to do with luck, how much of that is to do with, well, just their game plan working really well. But I thought we really took the game to them, and we played our game plan better than they did theirs, with their game plan being optimized against ours. which is something I find really, really impressive from Silva.
See, this is why I just let Mark go first, because his points are better than mine. But I 100% agree. It was so nice to actually see Adama fully take control of the game, because you haven't really seen that over the past couple of games, at least. And it was because I was getting a little bit worried that he was potentially losing not some steam because he's Adama Traore, but just kind of losing that chutzpah, that like general kind of like I want to be here. I was getting a little bit concerned that he was maybe just like, oh, I'm not getting my star. I'm just not that incentivized to play. And I was completely proven wrong on Saturday. I thought he was so excellent. He's got a good little cross on him, which I think that Silva's really been utilizing lately. I feel like lots of other clubs just have told him to just run and get into the box, but he can actually cross the ball, and he can, as Mark said, he completely wrecked Nico Williams the entire game. There was a couple of points where he just straight up burned him in terms of pace. I thought it was also a really, really good game for Sasa Lukic. I'm a little bit confused as to Sasa Lukic is so interesting to me at the moment, because I can see him in an attacking sense, and like he was doing a couple of things where I'm like, oh, I can see you potentially further up the pitch, but it still feels like it's a long way off. I'm not fully sold on who the Sasa Lukic is that we saw, but I kind of liked it. I thought it was some pretty cool. There's some pretty bold moves that he was doing, later on in the game, even though we got 5 minutes of it, we had the return of the Samba Whites, and for 5 minutes it was absolutely glorious, and I kind of wanted to see more of that overall. But I mean, not taking anything away from everybody else on the park, it was just a truly wonderful game. It was one of those games where we kind of got everything that we hoped for in a really, really lovely way. Like, obviously we conceded, but you know, I can take a pass on that. Anytime Calvin Bassey scores as well. I love Calvin Bassey, so anytime he scores, it makes me happy. I was just happy. It's just a very, very happy game.
Well, thanks for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. We're done now. And,
yeah, we can just go there.
Thanks for your rap, Sam.
Yeah. You guys want to talk about Pixar? What do you want to do?
You know, I'm gonna try and break this down, but I'm really so anxious and so inferior, because I did take the trouble to watch Cottage Tactico's little breakdown video before this, and if anyone's listening and hasn't ever discovered Cottage Tactico, please go and look him up on X and Blue Sky, and obviously very, very active in the That's So Craven Discord forum. But he actually, magnificently told the story of what happened and the chess game between these two managers, which arguably we or Marco Silva very decisively won in that first half. So I really highly recommend you go and do that, as I attempt to butcher an understanding of what actually happened. But if you want the real deal, go and listen to that. And what I found so interesting is, I think we all expected that Forest would allow us to keep possession and let us have the ball and try and hit us on the counter and break and defend really hard and stop us in those little half spaces, as Kish calls them, of actually getting anywhere near scoring. It was a bit of a game of chicken, or cat and mouse, if you like, in terms of enticing their five at the back out. And I was astonished early on of just how little they pressed us in defence, and how much time and we had to move the ball around and actually decide whether we were going to go left or right. And indeed, the number of times the ball went back between Bassey, Leno and Anderson before we picked a particular route was amazing. But it was a game of them holding five at the back and actually trying to not commit those wing backs forward until, and actually, as Kish pointed out, make their midfielders kind of do all the work, which was pretty tough on them because they were run very, very ragged in trying to, stop both of our wingers and actually protect their defence. I think it was, like you guys both mentioned, a really great coming out for Adama, because I think with every game like that, he proves that he's not just a fast guy in a muscle shirt. He's actually pretty skillful. And not only has he shown us that he's got one hell of a shot on his left foot, but he can actually cross a ball. That goal, without getting ahead of ourselves here, that cross into the box was inch perfect, absolutely perfectly flighted. Look, talking about the game a little bit more, I thought obviously Sasa Lukic had an incredible game. His work rate was unbelievable. I feel a little bit sorry for Berger that he didn't really get the plaudits, but I thought he had a very, very good game as well in terms of breaking up play and just always being there. I thought he was very, very good. Guys, any other standouts before we kind of move on to talk about that goal? Any other standouts in terms of what you saw in that first half?
Not necessarily a standout. Smith-Rowe is an interesting one because Smith-Rowe got us the first goal of the game. Didn't really do a whole lot during the game, but I can't hate him for getting in the right place, right time, and actually executing it well. He's interesting, isn't he? Because he can always seem, well, not always, but he can seem to get us more of an end result than say Pereira does. So he's still proving to have some value, even though he can go missing at some points. I'm not really sure how I feel about it at the minute, but if he's getting goals, I'm happy with him, I guess. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, I back that. I think, they occupy the same space, but the issues they have are different. And maybe I've said this on a previous pod, I definitely thought it, but with Smith-Rowe, I still think it's a confidence thing. And with Pereira, it's a composure thing, right? Because he wants to make up for a flashy play that he made that didn't come off. So he tries an even flashier play. And when they do come off, they look great. But, sometimes I feel like he overthinks it and he tries a little bit too hard to make up for things. Pereira, that is. With Smith-Rowe, I don't know how, but I still feel like he's not fully fit. I don't know if that's just the way he looks, whether he looks a bit more gassed towards the end of games. But I think there's still more that we can get out of him. We know the talent is there. If we can get him to his full potential, I'm very excited for what's going to happen, especially with those late runs that he's famous for previously at Arsenal and now with us. He's proved it again this match that he can pop up out of nowhere and really, provide something special to the team.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by his full potential because I don't know what it is. Sorry, Dad, you go.
No, I was going to say I don't know if it's a fitness thing. It feels more like a confidence thing to me. He seems like a pretty gentle lad actually. When things don't go his way, his head hangs. He doesn't hide his feelings very well, and I think he wears his heart on his sleeve. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm just reading what I see. And the flip side is if you go through a purple patch, great things happen, but it's not obviously not the recipe for resilience. And he's got to, if that is an issue for him, then he's obviously got to work on that. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know how he can not believe that he's a really key player for us. We rely on him, and that Marco obviously believes in him. It's a really difficult one. But as I said in our group chat today, I think over the last 6 weeks there has been really good improvement, and every week we're seeing a little more. And it's not coming as fast as I and many people would want. But if we get there eventually, then I begrudgingly am prepared to wait for it because I think he is something special. I just want and need to see more of it, and I need to see 90 minutes of it. Sam?
I think with Smith-Rowe, I think he massively benefits when he's surrounded by people that he's comfortable with as well. I think if Nelson and Iwobi were still playing directly beside him, maybe we'd have a little bit more to say about him. I'm specifically thinking of a moment. I think it was in the first half. It could have been in the second, but he could have passed it to either Iwobi or Traore, and he went for Iwobi. I think just out of security, because I mean, logic would dictate in any scenario you go for Traore. So maybe it's just kind of like he's still finding where he fits, not necessarily on like the park, but more with everybody else. Because it's like we've all played football before. We give it to the people that we trust, and maybe he's just kind of like as you said before, he's probably just a little bit reserved, and he just doesn't really know who he trusts yet. And he was just making a couple decisions like that, and I was like, I can see why you're choosing this because it seems like you're passing to your mate because you trust him, but why wouldn't you do this other thing? I don't know. Maybe you guys saw it a little bit differently to me, but that's what I was thinking.
I think there's something in that, and I think.
Do you know the run I'm talking
natural.
about?
Yeah, I do. I've seen it before, where I think if I had half of his skill, I'd be taking on 3 defenders and running into the box with the ball, and he'll lay it off. And I just think that that's more out of not a tactical build-up, but it's a confidence thing. And, Anyway, one thing that was extremely different on Saturday was the amount of shots on target that we saw in the first 15, 20 minutes. It was a flurry. Now, maybe that was partly because they were sitting back and allowing us to get into those areas where we felt we could have a go. But it was quite unusual for us to, find that many people ending up in the box and also so many shots. I think, from memory, Raul had a couple. And just in general, we were probably a little unlucky. I mean, the execution could have been better. It was definitely a header from Raul as well that went wide, which to me was a bit disappointing because I would have thought from that position. I know he was kind of falling backwards a little bit as he headed the ball, but you would have thought from there, Premier League striker should be hitting the target. But in general, can I talk about Raul? What did you think of his game, let's say in the first half?
I'm trying to point to Mark, but I can't do it because the thing's the other way around. Sorry.
Fair enough. I thought we kind of understand how Silva sees Raul, and Raul is an integral part of the team because he is a striker first and foremost. So we would love to see more goals out of him, but he links us up, and he was in the right place at the right time. The header was a little bit off, which you wonder prime Raul, maybe that bulges the back of the net, right? But yeah, I think he did all right. He did what he usually does. We going back a little bit, we were talking about January and how the wish list early on was for a striker, but that was never really going to happen once the whole right back situation occurred. But I didn't see anything markedly wrong. I think he did put himself in good positions and he did have a couple of shots, but against a goalkeeper like Matt Sells, who previously, I think XG-wise was, to be honest, pretty unremarkable. But this season, just like Chris Wood has absolutely exploded on the scene and been slight tangent here. I don't know how he didn't get player of the match from Forest fans and Chris Wood did instead. But that's a whole other story. Because
let him cook. Let him cook. Let him cook.
He's about to blow. But Sells kept the minute. Now, having said that, I think a lot of the shots were good shots, but they weren't all worldy saves. But they were good saves. They weren't ones that any old keeper would have saved. So he's done himself proud that match, right? And he kept the scoreline from being 4 or 5, I reckon, if you had a bottom 3 goalkeeper there instead, or someone who spills.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think back to the original point, Raul did all right, probably slightly better than average, but definitely somewhere we need to be looking at upgrading, especially since I think he must be in the top 3 most paid players at Fulham. I'm pretty sure, up with Leno.
Yeah.
So then you got to wonder, can we entice a top European striker who would want to play in the Premier League and prove himself there, especially if we get European football? It just has to be a place we upgrade instead of doing the extension, in my opinion. But what are you guys' thoughts on Raul?
He's a weird one for me because I find that, like, I've definitely said this about Raul before at some point, but it was one of those games where I kind of feel like he did absolutely everything right or everything that he's supposed to do, but he didn't get a goal. And I've seen him have that moment quite a few times. I find that, like, when Raul is like really, really firing, he's not necessarily playing the best game, but he's a bit chaotic and he's doing like kind of unhinged things. Like, that's where he thrives. He kind of thrives a little bit in chaos. He doesn't really, he's kind of like the opposite to Muniz. Muniz needs to be playing and doing everything right and having everything around him work quite well. If everything around Muniz is working quite well, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that he's actually going to score. It's just, as we've said, it just guarantees that he's going to be in the right places. And maybe he's probably a little bit too easy to telegraph because he's a bit more well-known. I don't necessarily know. But I mean, taking nothing away from him, I still think he is a good striker and he doesn't bother me when he starts. But we do need more of a complete player, because in an ideal world, everything would be set up right and then your striker would score, as opposed to waiting him to do like Rabonas and ridiculous things, which is fantastic. But yeah, some consistency would be nice.
Well, I had this weird thought in my head, and everyone is probably going to laugh when I even vocalize this. But if I look at what Raul is doing and doing really well, dropping really deep to get the ball, being very, very potent in build-up play, his passing and his vision to actually move the ball on is sometimes very, very good. And he's definitely been part of some really, really good moves. In front of goal, I get pretty frustrated that he doesn't execute great opportunities. I'll give you an example. I was just watching the brief highlights, the kind of overnight goals on Sunday. And I just watched Marino at Arsenal, the 2 goals he scored late against Leicester. And I just thought, the way in which he put away great opportunities, but so decisively. And I'm just thinking, where is our Fulham player that does that? And it's not acceptable to go, oh, yeah, but it's Arsenal and they've got a crazy... They paid £27 million for him. That is not outside of the realm of what we should be able to afford. And, yeah, it's just like Raul... If Raul wasn't a number 10 doing what he does and contributing in the way that he's currently contributing, and kind of having a few opportunities to score, but not nailing every single one of them, you'd probably be pretty relaxed about it. But as the main man, I know he's got his 8 goals this season, and it's not terrible, but it's kind of not good enough. It's not good enough. And
also,
at
quite a few of
100K
those
a
goals
week,
were penalties as well.
Yeah, and at 100K a week, I think we deserve more. I know that's an unpopular opinion because he has been doing, he's been contributing, and the guy tries his heart out and he runs himself completely ragged. And by the time he gets substituted, he's cooked. He's completely cooked because he works very hard. He's not standing with his hands on his hips, like an old school centre forward. He's a hard-working player and he's hungry, but it's just that final quality is just not there for me. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about that first goal. I think what's really interesting as well is how many times Adama has not done the typical Adama thing where he gets a ball over the top and he runs and just outpaces someone to get the ball. He's beaten players one-on-one numerous times and has actually been very, very skillful in working the ball forward. And this particular time, he's obviously just got a one-on-one situation where, a couple of the other times when he's actually tried to get a ball into the box, he's had at least two players on him. And perhaps surprisingly, he cuts onto his left side and gets a shot away. And as I said before, that was an inch perfect left-footed cross into the box, which found, again, surprise, surprise, Smith-Rowe appearing at the far post, absolutely brilliantly timed and very confidently putting that header away. It was actually a really, really well-worked goal. And I think... How many assists has Adama got? And whatever the number is, he probably should have 3 or 4 more because he's actually put some very, very, very good crosses into the box this season.
I feel that Silva's really worked on that. I mean, he's clearly done a massive amount of work on Anthony Robinson to do the exact same thing, and he seems to really, really like. Not necessarily just crossing it in, but well-timed, effective crosses from players that can find space and pace. And because I haven't really seen Traore play in the way in which Silva has made him play recently. It seems to bode very, very well for him. I think that he's not. I think it just kind of just takes a lot of the pressure off of him. I think for so many years, people have been very frustrated with Traore for being this guy who can get into the box because he can outpace everyone. But he is so well known for having no end result to the point where I think it's kind of damaged him or has damaged his stock. So it's actually really, really nice to see this reformation of Traore. I'm really gassed for it because I think it only bodes well for everybody. Mark, what do you reckon?
Yeah, agreed. I think this is going back to the Traore at the beginning of the season. I also like how we see he's still a bit of a stoic guy, right? That's why he gets that nickname Uncle Adama from the boys. But he's joining in the celebrations. He seems pleased to be with us, and for him, I would actually like if he keeps us up, we extend for a year. I think that makes sense. He's still got more to give. I think there was some rumors maybe a month ago that they were talking about a new contract. That could be interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to that. What I wanted to touch on, which hopefully I haven't misread, but I think Forest recently switched from man marking to zonal marking. And I think Silva picked up on that. And why that's interesting is, well, you're meant to protect the zone, right? And Milinkovic, who has been a huge pickup for them, has been statistically very, very strong in the air. But if you know that he's confined to a region, you just make sure you deploy all your crosses not in his zone, and he needs to stick to his zone, otherwise they break the line. So I think it was very targeted that we went for Murado at the back, and with Smith-Rowe's a lot of things had to work in our favor and to be executed really well for this goal to work, which is why it's so beautiful to watch. But Adama, basically, burns Nico, and then they're still stuck in their zonal positioning, and then he launches that cross in, late run from Smith-Rowe, beautiful goal. So I thought that was worth mentioning. It's, as we can see in their position in the league table, it's worked really well for them. They are defensively very, very solid, but we just kind of found a way to exploit that against them, and I think that's what's quite beautiful about the first goal.
See, Mark, when you say things like that, it's impossible for me to believe that no one's called you daddy.
in a calm and authoritative voice.
I'm going to break this up. I want to say that, again, just referencing back to Cottage Tactico's video and analytics and breakdown, he was talking very much about the job given to the Forest midfielders, and how they had a job to pick up, if I remember rightly, the wingers, our wingers as well as to deal with our midfielders, which actually left quite a lot of space. And I think Jack actually put up an interesting little stat, which I did see. I think it was on X, but I saw it floating around in the Discord. That, and I'll just go back to it here. Basically, he said a list of players with 5+ key passes and 100% passing accuracy in a single game in the Premier League over the last 8 seasons, and the list consists of one player, and that is Sasa Lukic. Oh. And he had a monster of a game, and probably was most effective in going forward than he ever has been. And I'm not a massive fan. I'm not very convinced by Sasa Lukic, the ball-carrying, attacking player, because I've seen so much of Sasa Lukic getting into the last 2/3, if not the last third, and just going sideways with the ball rather than actually carrying the ball forward or arriving in the box. But what a player he's turning out to be, and what a replacement we have found in the two of those guys, Berger and Lukic, as a combination for João Palhinha, who we all thought the world was going to fall apart when he walked out the door. And not that we all don't love João Palhinha, but functionally, I think it was a crisis when he left, partly because he's such an effective unit. And secondly, I think it was a huge anxiety that we simply wouldn't spend the money to replace him. And to be fair, we spent a modest amount of money in Berger, and it's been a terrific signing, because not only has Berger been everything we could have hoped for, but he's also somehow allowed Sasa Lukic to blossom into the player that obviously Marco Silva believed he was. And he certainly proved himself to be in the Italian league. So, yeah, I mean, the thing I also find remarkable is that I cannot believe he hasn't picked up his next yellow card. It's been like 3 weeks in the waiting. Yeah, I cannot believe it.
I mean, he doesn't really have the face of like a thug, for example. So he's not really warranting it. I think he kind of has like the bit of the Anderson effect, whereas Anderson has pretty privilege. I don't know what the privilege is when you kind of look like an accountant. It's more just like unassuming. Like Sasa Lukic,
I love the way he's always like this.
yeah. But he's also sly. He's also kind of like he's like hanging around dodgy areas, but he's not doing anything dodgy, or he's not really. He's the best person to have in a gang, because he's the guy that you get to speak to the police. Because like no one's gonna suspect Sasha. He's really interesting for me, like, because like he kind of like he touches on brilliance a lot of the time, and he is blossoming more. I really want to see in like 2 years' time, where like, because I think at the moment we're kind of getting like peak Harry Wilson. I really want to see peak Sasa Lukic, because I don't know what it's going to be. You know how like in The Office when David Brent like releases a single and it's If You Don't Know Me By Now, and it's kind of like you're watching it and you're just like, this is actually kind of good, but I'm not sure how good it actually is. That's how I feel about Sasa Lukic at all times. I'm just like, how good are you? Because you're giving me like that turn and that almost goal. If he would have pulled that off, that would have been utterly sensational and completely unexpected. And like I feel that like all the goals he's gotten as well have been pretty incredible, but also completely unexpected. I am pretty sure he scored a goal from his thigh at one point, either this season or last season, and that's just kind of Sasa Lukic. Yeah, I just. He kind of really fascinates me, but I think you're 100% right. Alongside Berger, we will get the best of him.
Yeah, big fan of Lukic as well. He's come into his own this season, and I think he's a really good soldier for Marco. Like he will like defend the team to the last. And the moment I guess I figured out what I really liked what he did was I think it was last season, and he was tasked by Marco to like man mark Maddison. And you could just see Maddison slowly losing his mind, and he gets like little niggles and little shoves throughout the matches before he just starts whinging to the referee about every little foul that's committed against him. Some rightly, but I think Lukic got away with it for a long, long time. And when you get a player of Maddison's quality tilted and upset, and they're more focused on snapping back at your midfielders and mouthing off to the ref instead of placing those perfect passes, then you've won the mental game, and that makes the rest of the match so much easier in that part of the park.
I'm so glad you actually recall that, because I remember that as being a real turning point when it was the first time we saw, I better not use a word, but I think you all know the word I'd really love to use, when we saw the little minx in Lukic, and he came out and it was just like rabbit punching Maddison and really, really manhandling him. And Maddison hated it. It was the first time he'd actually had a job to do. And I think from if I remember that correctly, it could have been when Pellegrini was out, and he stepped in, and he had a real job to do, and he did it so effectively, and it showed us, what thanks very much, Skibby. You read my mind. But you threw me off there, Skip. But what I think, as I said, to round that out, we can't get enough of Sasa Lukic at the moment in that pairing, and I wonder when it's, because it's going to come. It's going to come. He's going to get another yellow card. There's no way he sees out, the season without getting another yellow card, right? And at what point do we suffer a broken pairing in the midfield? But anyway, yeah.
I'm pretty optimistic. I like between Reed, Josh King, Kenny, I think that there's enough there that I don't really worry as much, but I definitely have my favorite pairing in Lukic and Sasa. But speaking of my favorite things, Mark, did you want to talk about Wood's goal?
I'm going to do my best to be balanced and fair here.
No, don't be balanced. Don't be balanced. That's not why we tuned in for this.
Yeah, I think, all right, so some context. Why myself and Skibby vie for the title of the Fulham fan who dislikes Forest the most is basically off of one YouTuber who called us Mitrovic FC, because Mitrovic was scoring a lot of goals for us at the time. Well, if we're Mitrovic FC, they are definitely Chris Wood FC. I mean, undisputedly, hands down, he's done a great job for them, 18 goals so far. But yeah, that's a big part of it, amongst other reasons. But let's talk about the Wood goal. To be honest, I think that's what you get when you have a striker who is confident and willing to take risks, and is in the right place at the right time. Now, there is an element of fortune there because Morgan Gibbs-White does a great cross, sends it in, right? And I think it hits either his back or his heel or something like that, and completely...
It's his heel. I think it's his heel. Or okay. his leg, or some part of his leg.
Yeah. So he manages to befuddle Bassey and Robinson, but he still has a general idea where the ball is, so he's able to collect, create half a foot of space, and take the shot, which, once again, how many times have we seen a lucky deflection, usually off of Calvin as well, beat Leno, and it's very frustrating. But at the same time, you can argue that's what good strikers do, right? We've many a match in the championship when we had that amazing season, we would scrape by on a 1-0 because Mitrovic would leap like a salmon out from a corner or a free kick and place it in the net. And so I can understand why he's getting so many plaudits. But, it feels equal parts skill, but also a fair bit of luck involved.
Look, and all it does is just, tweak my frustrations, in that all credit to Wood. He, as you described, Bassey and Bassey are running towards the goal. Bassey's taken his eye off the ball. The ball hits Wood. He's the only guy who knows the ball's hit him, so he has the presence of mind to turn and buy himself a second or two. And he got his shot away. He got it clear of his feet. Got his shot away. Gets a lucky deflection because I think Leonard gets a hand on that. But nevertheless, you take the opportunities, and if you execute well, you get goals. And that's my jealousy, that they actually do that very well. And Wood's been doing that very well. It's a bit of luck and literally against the run of play, because they had nothing before that. Nothing. Nothing serious. I think there was a shot, possibly not on target, but there were a couple of shots off target. So look, I think Marco must have been immensely frustrated to go in at halftime, having conceded one, with us dominating, and his plan not only proving to be so smart, but also our execution was so good. And so I think he must have been immensely frustrated. But to our credit, we came out in the second half. They made a few changes, and I think they switched. Their five at the back, and so the formation was it was definitely different. But to our credit, what is it? Bassey scores in the 62nd minute, and let's talk through this goal and just kind of what it means to have our Eagles in any part of goal celebrations or goal success. What a wonderful goal for Calvin Bassey, and what a lovely guy to have that success.
Yeah, he's really. I mean, I feel like we're a very accepting club. Like it's there. I mean, we get so many kind of like offcuts, and I love when people refer to us as football rehab, because it does kind of feel like you're going to like a resort. It's like, it hasn't really worked out your team. Come to Fulham, you can rebuild a little bit. But we do have a couple of like core players that seem to have just kind of immediately got in and just immediately cozied up to everything. Bassey was 100% one of them. And it's just so nice to see him so loved by all the other players. And he clearly is loved, and he's such a good player. He's so young. I mean, I could really see him at some point having the armband, just because he's just so beloved, and I can't really see him. I can only see him getting better. I remember when we first got him, and he was really all over the place, and like there was something awesome about him as well. But he was very, very electric. I just really, he's a bit like Muniz in the way where whenever something kind of like comes off well for him, I'm just so elated for him, because I just want the best for him. I'm sure there's like deeper technical analysis into it, but purely from an emotional standpoint, I just want to hold on to Bassey for as long as physically possible. I really hope actually he doesn't get to the point where it becomes so good that big teams will come sniffing around, because he really feels like, oh boy. Yeah. Absolutely love the guy. He is such a welcome addition. And if nothing else, commentary actually was saying, they were like, oh, when Bassey first came here, they weren't sure about him. I do not know a single Fulham fan that has ever questioned Calvin Bassey. So commentary was bullshit in that regard. And I also like that, even though it wasn't that much of a question, the Anderson-Bassey partnership is still strong. The Diop partnership with Bassey is also strong. Calvin Bassey, he's fantastic. I love Calvin Bassey.
Yeah, he's definitely part of Vibes FC, right? Him and Iwobi doing the whole Super Eagles thing, and like,
so funny.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I recommend, if I'm not on Snap, but I know they post on Snap a fair bit. Iwobi does, at least. But what we see, snippets from Instagram, things like that, it just seems like there's a real good feel good factor at the club. And, I think Iwobi was joking that, Bassey did about 20 celebrations in one, because if you watch his celebrations, they're a little all over the place. He's like really happy, and he's sort of like sprinting at the sideline. Then he does a knee slide. Then he goes into a hug. Then he goes into a pose. And it's like he's just trying to get it all out at once. But
I guess if you don't score very often, you kind of don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
You make the most of it. But another thing I noticed, which was a change, was that once again, I think the zonal marking comes into it, and the ball goes to Raul, who heads it behind, and Bassey finishes. In the previous seasons where we played Forest, they usually had a guy on the line to help protect the goal next to the goalkeeper. And I think if they had a guy on the line like Manchester United did in that match where we thought Anderson equalized, I don't know if that goes in. Maybe it's just high enough that they can't head it out. But I was surprised
quite
to
high,
see.
but yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that no one immediately went to the goal line to sort of cover cells on the other side. But yeah, Bassey is huge for us. I'm actually really happy that Murillo's having such a great season, so all the top 6 guys can go for him instead. But surely any scout who's looking deeper than sort of top level statistics will see that Bassey performs very well in many metrics, and sort of the XG that we allow against us seem to be freak accidents or momentary lapses in concentration. So I really hope we get to hold on to him for at least another season, if not longer. So we'll see.
Yeah. Look, I think that was not only obviously a very exciting moment in the game where, look, at the 62nd minute, it was a long way from being done. But funnily enough, I didn't feel that, I didn't really feel that we were in danger of losing it. I don't know if that's wild hubris or overconfidence, but it felt like we very much had their measure. I didn't think they didn't scare me. I thought in many ways they were quite underwhelming overall. Maybe it's more a matter of how Marco set up and how we sort of boxed them into their own heads, if you like. But yeah, I don't remember exactly the moment that we made. Sorry, Sam, do you want to say something?
I'm not sure where you're segueing to, but if we're talking about just kind of like closing out the game in general, I really want to talk about when Muniz, Andreas, and Willian came on. If you will indulge me, or did you have something else that you want to say first?
Well, I stopped on my way to that very point. So why don't
you go. No, you do the intro because I'm going to go on a tangent. So I'll indulge you if you indulge me.
Yeah. So I'm ashamedly a very, very big Willian fan, if anyone didn't know, and I'm very, very happy that he's back at the club, and I'm even happier that he's fit enough to be considered to be on the bench and actually brought on. And that was a moment that I don't think we've seen in terms of luscious Latin playing with freedom that kind of just happened in a moment of brilliance between a couple of Brazilian players there. It was kind of almost a little bit too much, because if you really break it down and stand back and look at it frame by frame, there were probably a few poor decisions made in the actual moment. Not least the fact that Muniz should have passed to Cess, who was in miles of space, and Muniz had 3, if not 4 defenders and a goalkeeper directly in front of him, masking the entire goal, and with almost no chance of sliding the ball through. But, strikers be strikers, and he had a shot anyway. But, Mark, why don't you walk the punters through? If they haven't seen the game, but I just happened to fall into this podcast, walk them through and paint a picture for what happened in those glorious Latin moments.
Wow. I mean, I'll try and do it justice, but it was so nearly a beautiful, well, it was beautiful, but it was so nearly a perfect sequence of events. I think it starts with Leno going long to Andreas. Yeah. Good ball, pretty accurate, right? But you still have to fight for it. But this is what I like about Andreas. I may have my criticism of him sometimes, but he puts in the hard yards and he fought for that ball. And sometimes you win them, right? Sometimes it bounces awkwardly. The defender loses focus, or for whatever reason, he beats. I don't know who was playing there at the time. I don't think it was Aina, but he beats the person who's meant to be defending the ball from that run. Then he manages to find Willian in the box, and it's all so fast. So he's coming in from, he's running down towards the byline. He's on the side. He passes it into the box to Willian, who I think does a back heel, or he managed to lay it off behind him to Muniz, who's running in. And the Forest defense is absolutely, I think, in I wouldn't say in shambles, but they're caught unawares, right? Because this is all happening so quickly. And for those of you, those of us who watch Fulham week in and week out, I wish we did that more often, because sometimes we like to sit, pause, think what we're going to do, pass to someone else who sits and pauses. And now I'm going to sit and pause and lay it off to the side to Sam.
Thank you. I'm chomping at the bit right here. I'm like a Coke Zero can that's just been shaked. Okay. All right, composure. So the thing that I love about this is it's exactly what I was talking about with Smith-Rowe and all his Arsenal friends, like playing together. Willian, Andreas, and Muniz at this point know each other so well, so it must be so discombobulating when there's been a highly structured game, and then Silva's literally just gone, you boys, you go, just go, just it's carnival, just have some fun. And when they have some fun, it is totally electric. I mean, it was probably only about 7 minutes in total, but for those 7 minutes, I was like, there is no way Forest scoring anything, because they're just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And that is incredible. I mean, we'll probably see would we see a FA Cup level? I'm not sure if we'd see a FA Cup level. I really hope we do, even if for like just 20 minutes or even 30 minutes. But like, they're just electric together. They're so fantastic, and it's ultimate kind of cohesion. Like, they know each other all so well. And do you know it would be amazing if they got like Cess to just be like the like adopted Brazilian or something like that. Like that would just make me so happy, because they do need like another winger to join that kind of group that they got going on. But it's so exciting to have just something else you can just pull out of your ass, because the system is good. The system is really, really strong, and you can bring in like individual players like Kearney and even Reed and even Diop as well. You can bring in these key central pieces, but does not equate to being able to bring in an entirely new element that consists of 4 players just playing and just balling. And I am chomping at the bit to actually see that. It's so great to have Willian back. I knew it was good to have Willian back, but I just forgot that he brings this, and he actually empowers players like Muniz and like Andreas,
100%,
who need all the empowerment that they can get. And I'm just so excited. I'm really, really excited about it.
Here's a thought, because in a blink of an eye, it felt like without any communication or visible communication, they found themselves in a back street playing street football, right?
100%.
Just like in a blink of an eye, and there's that trust amongst them. And I think it's no secret that the combination happened between those 3 players who just knew it was on. And you talk about other players. Harry Wilson can 100% participate in that kind of play. I think Nelson could also do something. But one guy who I really believe could be part of that is Emile Smith-Rowe. He's got the skill, he's got the feet, and I just wonder whether Willian being in the camp might just release something in him. If I was Silva, I'd actually be encouraging that,
Pay for
because
Portuguese lessons.
yeah, whatever, go on holiday together. I don't care what happens or how we get to it, but I really think that having Willian in and around the squad and on the pitch, he has the ability to actually be a catalyst for that kind of thing, and that's what I love about him. That's what I love about him. Even in his twilight years, he's still got the ability to absolutely turn a game on its head and bring that kind of thing to life. So yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't get a goal out of all that magic, and Cess was in acres of room and he was the only player in a white shirt with a clear view of an open goal. And I believe there's a screenshot of Cess standing with his hands in the air. I can't believe Ryan Sessegnon has a loud voice, but presumably he was calling for it. Maybe he was just asking him very politely, and that's why Mooney's in his...
The reggaeton was playing too loud, like no one could.
I commented on our group chat that I'm sure Mooney's would have been so ecstatic at what was actually unfolding that he was just caught up in the moment. Oh, yeah. And he just had to put his foot through it and hopefully claim the glory and put it at 3-1 and totally beyond Forest. And there was some commentary on the live feed with some of the guys following on. And someone asked about apparently Mooney's went straight down the tunnel very quickly at the end of the game, and a question was asked as to why that may have happened, and someone suggested that that Willian gave Mooney's a spray for not actually passing the ball to Cess. I'm not sure. I didn't see any of that, but I'm sure they will have a lovely big Portuguese cuddle, and that will all be made up. And yeah. So look, at 57 minutes and 15 seconds, I'm highly motivated to wrap this up within an hour, like we did last week, because I think it's a good thing. But look, I just I couldn't be happier with that outcome. If we jump to the slides, we can quickly have a look at that glorious position of where we are, and we now sit in 8th position on 39 points. But 5 points from a Champions League position, if you don't mind. And certainly, only, 3-4 points off a European position. But in any event, this is where we need to be. And if we continue like this, one could hardly claim that our season is fizzling out. And I think the next run of games are entirely winnable. And if we continue to play like that, I think it bodes really, really well as to where we might end up. Who knows? Who knows where we will truly end up in terms of final points? But I haven't given up. I haven't given up hope that we could actually make and qualify for Europe. And I think that should be very much in our sights.
You just can't say that out loud, though. I know we have a podcast and I know what we're doing, but like you just, I can't. We got to get like at least a month out from like the end of the Prem, and if we're still in 8th place, then I'll be getting excited. But until then, I can't hope, because like I just. It's not just wanting it and just being in that position, but that's really where we need to get in order to kind of like keep it rolling, get the signings that we need to get, because it could be everything for us. So I don't want to believe yet. Like I'm being kind of coy about it. Like I want to.
Who are we scared of? I mean, okay, Liverpool, great side. Arsenal, incredibly good side.
A little bit scared of Bournemouth because they shouldn't be as high as they are.
Bournemouth having a great season. I mean, and Man City aren't having their best season, but still very formidable. But, I'm not scared of any of these teams, home or away. And so provided we can keep the energy level up, I don't see why this isn't going to end up where we think it's going to end up.
What scares me are these winnable games, right? Because those are the ones where we always inevitably end up with disappointment this season when, we're up against Ipswich or who, have turned up in recent games, and Southampton as well. It's the ones where you expect nothing, like Chelsea away where the magic happens. And then the ones where, we're kind of expecting a one-sided goal fest from our boys, and we've struggled with a low block. But I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I think we've always done pretty well historically against Forest and Palace. So let's see how that turns out. But
I don't want to play Wolves again. I don't know why, but they've been a real bogey team for us pretty recently. And is it Cuenca? Is it Cuenca? Yeah, sorry, Cunha. Oh, he's phenomenal, isn't he?
Yeah, no,
he's a good player. Really good.
Yep. Anyway, that will be the topic for another podcast. And it's we don't have to think about that. We don't even have to worry about that tonight or today. Guys, let's wrap it up there because I blew my objective. We've gone over a minute, over an hour, sorry, but we're close enough. Sam, thank you very much for staying up, wearing your smoking jacket or robe or whatever that is, and joining us.
Thank you. It's a bit of a suggestive color because it's flesh, but I can assure you that I am wearing clothes, just barely, just for the audience. Got to give the people what they want. But speaking of giving the people what they want, thank you very much for having me because I wanted to be here, and I'm very happy that I was. And I'm going to go to bed now, so I'm excited for that. And you two can both be in my dreams.
Fair enough. And Mark. I don't know how many points I've got to give you for getting straight off a flight this morning, a long-haul flight from Hong Kong, going into work or actually participating in work with your other colleagues, wherever you might be sitting, and taking some deliveries and installing furniture and actually still carving out time to be on the pod. Impressive effort for all those other guys who are doing their nails and getting their beards trimmed.
Just happy to be here. Thanks for referencing the laundry list of items that I've had to deal with today. But this is a high point, and it's all downhill from here. So let's finish with a cheer.
Thanks, guys. Just a final reminder to please find our Discord and come and join us. It's a great place to have a chat, and we would love to see more and more people there. And thank you to everyone who's followed along on the live stream and put lots of comments in. And we do appreciate that very, very much. But as we always say at the end of these podcasts, come on, you whites.